Hi, my name is Andrew Lash and welcome to this discussion on the Mitre ATT&CK framework, where I'll take you through the tactics and techniques used by adversaries and how you can use the framework to protect your organization. Started in 2013 and released to the public in 2015, Mitre Adversarial Tactics, Techniques and Common Knowledge, or ATT&CK, provides a framework for defenders to use cyber threat intelligence, or CTI, about known actors, to deploy adversary behaviours against their defences, to test and validate their effectiveness, and to make changes to fix misconfigurations or fill defensive gaps. ATT&CK is largely a knowledge base of adversarial techniques based on real-world observations. ATT&CK focuses on how adversaries interact with systems during an operation, reflecting the various phases of an adversary's attack lifecycle and the platforms they are known to target. ATT&CK organizes these techniques into a set of tactics to help provide context for the individual techniques. The tactic is the adversary's tactical objective for performing an action. Tactics cover standard, higher-level notations for things adversaries do during an operation and are under 14 tactic categories as follows: reconnaissance, which includes 10 techniques; resource development, which includes 8 techniques; initial access, which includes 11 techniques; execution, which includes 16 techniques; persistence, which includes 23 techniques; privilege escalation, which includes 14 techniques; defense evasion, which includes 45 techniques; credential access, which includes 17 techniques; discovery, which includes 33 techniques; lateral movement, which includes 9 techniques; collection, which includes 17 techniques; command and control, which includes 18 techniques; exfiltration, which includes 9 techniques; and impact, which includes 15 techniques. To see this information, you can go to https://attack.mitre.org/# which shows ATT&CK version 17.1 dated 22nd of April 2025. Let's go to the website and navigate around a little bit so you can get a bit of a feel for what it looks like. So this is the landing page for the Mitre ATT&CK website. You can see there's some options here for getting started, how you can contribute, some frequently asked questions, links, and take a tour, a blog and a random page, which includes some items within here. You can see the ATT&CK matrix for enterprise is what is shown by default. You can see the tactics across the top here, including reconnaissance, resource development, initial access, etc. And you can see within each of these tactics there are the number of techniques associated with these, and it takes up quite a bit of the page, so we'll scroll down and you can see everything that's listed here. So by default this is showing the ATT&CK matrix for enterprise. You can see at the top there's a matrix for enterprise, mobile and industrial control systems, and if you click on the mobile option you'll see the tactics and techniques that are associated with mobile, and the ICS link shows the tactics and techniques that are associated with ICS. If you want to drill down into each of the tactics and techniques, you can click on the options along here. So the tactics for enterprise include the 14 tactics as mentioned before, and there is an ID that Mitre has assigned to each of these tactics, and you can click into these tactics for some more information. And each tactic obviously has techniques, and you can see the techniques are specified here with their associated ID and the names of those techniques. And you can do that for enterprise, mobile and ICS. Key concepts. ATT&CK is a model that attempts to systematically categorize adversary behavior. The main components of the model are tactics, which represents why or the reason an adversary is performing an action. Techniques represents how adversaries achieve tactical goals by performing an action. Sub-techniques, a more specific or lower level description of adversarial behavior. And procedures, which is specific implementation or in the wild use the adversary uses for techniques or sub-techniques. ATT&CK is organized in a series of technology domains the ecosystem an adversary operates within. Currently there are 3 technology domains: enterprise, which represents traditional enterprise networks and cloud technologies; mobile, for mobile communication devices, and ICS for industrial control systems. Within each domain are platforms, which may be an operating system or application, for example, Microsoft Windows. Techniques and sub-techniques can apply to multiple domains. Tactics represent the why of an attack technique or sub-technique. It is the adversary's tactical goal, the reason for performing an action. For example, an adversary may want to achieve credential access. A summary of the tactics and their associated ID is provided on the link on the screen, which is https://attack.mitre.org/tactics/enterprise. You may recognize the ATT&CK IDs from your own security software solution that maps alerts or incidents to attack. You can click each link for further information on the tactic. Techniques represent how an adversary achieves a tactical objective by performing an action. For example, an adversary may dump credentials to gain access to useful credentials within a network that can be used later for lateral movement. The relationship between tactics and techniques can be visualized in the attack matrix, which is at https://attack.mitre.org/matrices/enterprise. The matrix contains information for the following platforms: Windows, Mac OS, Linux, PRE, which refers to pre-attack, a framework focusing on the early stages of a cyber attack before an adversary gains access to a system or network, Office Suite, Identity Provider, SaaS, IaaS, Network Devices, Containers, ESXi, Android, iOS, and ICS. When you click on a matrix, you'll see the tactics and techniques that are applicable to that platform. In this screen, you can see that the Containers platform has been selected and the relevant tactics and techniques associated with this platform are displayed. Getting started with attack. Attack can be useful for any organization that wants to move toward a threat-informed defense. They share ideas for how to start, regardless of how sophisticated your team is. Getting started with attack is broken down into 3 different levels depending on your team's experience or resource level. Level 1 for those just starting out who may not have many resources. Level 2 for those who are mid-level teams starting to mature. And Level 3 for those with more advanced cybersecurity teams and resources. The following 4 use cases are the most common way that users report applying attack to their work. 1. Threat intelligence. 2. Detection and analytics. 3. Adversary emulation and red teaming. 4. Assessment and engineering. Let's go into more detail for each of these use cases, starting with threat intelligence. An important aspect of attack is how it integrates cyber threat intelligence, or CTI. Unlike previous ways of digesting CTI that were used primarily for indicators, attack documents adversary group behavior profiles, such as ATT&CK, based on publicly available reporting to show which groups use what techniques. Start by finding a group that has targeted your sector and against whom you want to be able to defend yourself. Then share it with your cyber defense team. From the website https://attack.mitre.org website, click in the search bar and type an industry you are interested in, such as healthcare, finance, etc., and you'll see a list of articles including information such as APT groups targeting the industry. Click on one of the groups to bring up their page with a description and a list of techniques used. You can click on the techniques to learn about potential mitigations and ways to detect these techniques. You can find a list of the different adversaries and their activities under https://attack.mitre.org/groups. In summary, an easy way to start using attack for threat intelligence is to look at a single adversary group you care about. Identifying some behaviours they've used helps you inform your defenders about how they can try to detect that group. For more information on how you can use CTI depending on the skill level of your team, refer to the link in the slide, https://www.mitre.org/sites/default/2021-11/getting started with attack October 2019.pdf. I will include this link in the slide deck resources. Detection and analytics. This use case is about how to build detections for the adversary behaviors you discovered in use case 1, threat intelligence. Building analytics to detect attack techniques might be different than how you're used to doing detection. Rather than identifying things that are known to be bad and blocking them, attack-based analytics involves collecting log and event data about the things happening on your systems and using that to identify the suspicious behaviours that are described in attack. In order to find suspicious behaviour, you need to be able to see what's happening on your systems. One way to do this is to look at the data sources listed for each attack technique. Those data sources describe the types of data that could give you visibility into the given technique. In other words, they give you a good starting point for what to collect. Several sources are valuable at detecting a large number of techniques. For example, process and process command line monitoring, often collected by sysmon, syslog, rsyslog, Windows event logs, and many EDR platforms. File and registry monitoring, also often collected by sysmon, Windows event logs, and many EDR platforms. Authentication logs, such as those collected from the domain controller via Windows event logs. And packet capture, especially east-west capture, such as that collected between hosts and areas in your network by sensors. A frequently cited data source is Windows event logs, which provide visibility into many attack techniques. A good resource for getting started with event logs is Malware Archaeology's Windows Attack Logging Cheat Sheet, which is as per the link in the slide, https://www.malwarearchaeology.com/cheat sheets, which maps Windows events to the techniques you could detect with them. You should also consider best practice logging and auditing settings from Microsoft or Center for Internet Security benchmarks. Once you know what data you have, you'll need to collect that data into some kind of search platform, for example, a Security Information and Event Management, or SIEM, so you can run analytics against it. Mitre Cyber Analytics Repository, which is at https://car.mitre.org, is a knowledge base of analytics developed by Mitre based on the Mitre Attack Adversary model. CAR includes implementations directly targeted at specific tools, for example, Splunk, EQL, and its analytics. For example, CAR-2021-01-003 runs a search where the WEVT util tool is used to clear Windows event logs. This use case gives you an idea of what it means to build analytics to detect attack techniques and builds on the section above to show you not just what you can understand what the adversary can do via cyber threat intelligence, but that you can use that intelligence to build analytics to detect those techniques. For further information on how you can use detection and analytics depending on the skill level of your team, refer to the section in the PDF link provided in the previous slide. Adversary emulation and red teaming. This use case builds on the previous two above and covers adversary emulation and red teaming with ATT&CK to demonstrate how we can test those new analytics built. Adversary emulation is a type of red team engagement that mimics a known threat to an organization by blending in threat intelligence to define what actions and behaviors the red team uses. There are quite a few resources available to help jumpstart testing your defenses with techniques that align with ATT&CK. One of those is Atomic Red Team, with the link provided in the slide. This is a library of tests mapped to the Mitre Attack framework. Security teams can use Atomic Red Team to quickly, portably, and reproducibly test their environments. You can execute atomic tests directly from the command line with no installation required. See the Getting Started page of their wiki with the link provided in the slide. You can also view all atomic tests by attack, tactic, and technique in the link provided in the slide. And for further information on how you can use adversary emulation and red teaming depending on the skill level of your team, you can also refer to the link provided, which is https://medium.com/mitreattack/getting started with attack red 29F074CCF7E3. I will provide these links in the resource. The next use case is assessment and engineering. This use case shows how you can use ATT&CK to measure your defenses and enable improvement, and builds upon the use cases above, so check them out if you haven't already. ATT&CK assessments are a part of a larger process to provide useful data to security engineers and architects justifying threat-based security improvements. They can assess how your defenses currently stack up to techniques and adversaries in ATT&CK. identify the highest priority gaps in your current coverage, and modify your defenses or acquire new ones to address these gaps. The idea is to start small and select a single technique to focus on. Determine your coverage for that technique and then make the appropriate enhancements to start detecting it. By starting this way, you can practice how you would run a larger assessment. Once you have a technique picked out, you want to figure out what your coverage of that technique is. It is suggested you start with the following categories of coverage and keep your scoring categories simple, i.e., are you able to detect it or not? 1. Your existing analytics will likely detect the technique, or 2. Your analytics won't detect the technique, but you're pulling in the right data sources to detect it, or 3. You're not currently pulling in the right data sources to detect the technique. Once you're familiar with this process and have access to more resources, you'll ideally want to expand your analysis to span a reasonably large subset of the attack matrix. For further information on how you can use assessment and engineering depending on the skill level of your team, refer to the link in the slide deck. Attack Navigator. The Attack Navigator is a web-based tool for annotating and exploring attack matrices. It can be used to visualize defensive coverage, red or blue team planning, the frequency of detected techniques, and more. You can launch the Navigator tool by going to https://mitre-attack.github.io/attack-navigator. The article in this link explains how to compare layers using the Navigator. We'll use this article for comparing layers as part of the walkthrough next. Let's step through using the Attack Navigator. Let's go to the web page, https://mitre-attack.github.io/attack-navigator. This process will walk through how to use the Attack Navigator to compare two different layers. As you can see, I'm on the landing page for the Attack Navigator, and you'll see that there are options to create a new empty layer. You can load a layer from your computer that you've saved previously or from a URL, and you can create layers from other layers, and you can also create a customized navigator. This walkthrough will be helpful if you want to compare techniques used by two different groups, but can be applied in many ways. To compare a group to your defensive coverage from one week to the next, whatever you want to do. For this walkthrough, we'll compare APT3 techniques to AP29 techniques. To do this, we'll create an APT3 layer and assign a score to the techniques used by APT3 in one layer. We'll create a second layer and assign a score to techniques used by APT29. We'll combine the two using create layer from other layers using the expression A plus B, and we'll export the layer in the format of your choice. The first step is to create an APT3 layer and assign a score to techniques used by APT3. So we will click on the create a new layer, and you can see that you can create a enterprise, mobile or ICS attack layer depending on your scenario. For this one, we will click on the more options, and for the version we'll select the latest, which is Mitre Attack version 17. Select the domain as the enterprise attack, and we'll click create layer from version. So you can see that we've got all of the tactics and techniques that are included in the navigator, which are pulled through from the enterprise matrix. First, we'll select the techniques by APT3, and we can use the techniques already mapped to APT3 in attack by clicking the search and multi-select button and searching for APT3. So if we go to search and multi-select, and we select, put in APT3, enter, and we'll expand threat groups, and you can see the items that have come through from the search, and we'll select this option here for APT3, and you can see some of these little boxes that have come in around some of the techniques, and they are associated with the APT3 threat group. Next, we'll assign a score to those highlighted techniques. You can do this by clicking the techniques control button, which is up on the top right, and then the scoring button, and choosing a score. The scoring button here, and we'll choose a score of 1. And you can see that these have been now highlighted in red. If you want to add other techniques that you know APT3 has used, then you can just click on the technique and use the scoring button to assign a score to those techniques as well. To help keep yourself organized, you'll name the layer APT3 by clicking Layer Controls button and the settings icon, and we can see under the name layer we will change this to APT3, and you can see that it has actually changed that in this tab up here as well. And if you want, you can put in a description. So you can see the tactics and techniques that are associated with APT3 highlighted in red and have got a score of 1. Next, we'll create an APT29 layer and assign a scoring technique to those used by APT29. So we'll click the plus sign at the top of the navigator to create a new layer, which is just this plus sign here. We'll create a new layer similar to as what we did previously. And we'll repeat what we did for APT3, but this time we'll use APT29. So we'll search for APT29, choose APT under the threat group, and we'll click select. And you can see the highlighted techniques. And we'll give the score for APT29 a score of 2. So under the technique controls, the scoring, we'll give a score of 2, and that has highlighted in red. And then we will rename this layer to APT29. If you want to close, you just click on the settings button again. This time we'll combine the existing APT3 and APT29 layers so we can see the combined techniques used by both. This time we'll click the plus to create a new tab, and this time we'll select create layer from other layers. When you expand the drop down, Navigator gives letter names for each of your existing layers in yellow. So you can see here A is associated with APT3 and B is associated with APT29. You want to combine the scores you have in your two layers, so you choose addition and enter the expression A plus B. We'll select the Enterprise Attack version 17, and the score expression will be A plus B. And we'll leave the other options by default as default and click Create Layer. The techniques will appear with the color depending on the score. If you scroll over the techniques, you'll see some techniques have a score of 1, which are these ones here, which were associated with APT3. Some have a score of 2, which are a combination, which are for the APT29. And some have a score of 3, and these are the ones that are used by both APT3 and APT29. So you can see here the scores for Ingress tool transfer has a score of 3, as it's used by both APT3 and APT29. You can change the colors that appear for each score by clicking the Color Setup button under Layer Controls. So if we click on Layer Controls and color setup. You know the values are 1, 2, and 3. So make the low value 1 and the high value 3. Navigator knows 2 is halfway between 1 and 3, so we'll automatically use the middle color for the value of 2. Now you can choose the colors you want for each layer. You can choose to make ATT&CK score, which is score equals 1, as yellow. So if we click on the option here and we choose yellow, ATT&CK techniques score of 2 for blue. And the score for both groups green, in order to convey that yellow plus blue makes green. And we'll click in here and select 1 as the low value and 3 as the high value, and we can see that we now have the colors changed. So blue is the score of 2 for ATT&CK, green is a combination of ATT3 and ATT&CK, and yellow is ATT1. And again, we want to set the layer name to be something that you can recognize, ATT3 and ATT&CK combined. Step 4, export the layer. There's a couple of options for how you can export the Navigator layer under layer controls, and which one you choose will depend on how you want to work with it. So if we go to the layer controls, and under the export option you can see that you can download single layer as a JSON, download all layers as JSON, export single layer to Excel, export all layers to Excel, or you can render layer to SVG. If you export to Excel, it will export just the colors and not the scores. If you download the layer as JSON, you might find it useful if you want to script a layer's ingestion into another tool or save it for later manipulation in the ATT&CK Navigator. If you want to download it as an image for a PowerPoint, you can show off what you know about the adversary groups. You can export the layer as an SVG image file. As you export to SVG, you have lots of information on what you want to include, as well as the format, text, size, etc. Click the download button to get a copy of your SVG to use however you see fit. So if we click on download render layer to SVG, and you can see you can put the orientation, the size, the font. You can include a legend, and you can set display settings. And down the right here is the download SVG, which will download to your location that you choose. If you need any more help, just click the question mark in the upper right hand corner of the Navigator. You can see the help option here. If you click on that and click on the help, you'll see a table of contents with the documentation to assist. The slide includes a list of resources that you can use for Mitre ATT&CK and how to deliver a threat-informed defense at the following locations. These links will be provided in the YouTube description. There's a link to the Mitre ATT&CK default homepage, ctit.mitre-ingenuity.org, key resources for deploying an effective threat-informed defense. attack.mitre.org/mitigation/enterprise, tools to deploy to defend yourself. academy.attack-IQ.com has free training on how to operationalize Mitre ATT&CK, use breach and attack simulation, and run purple team operations. academy.attack-IQ.com/courses/intro to Fin6 emulation plans. shows how to build an adversary emulation plan with Mitre's Fin6 emulation plan. In this lesson, you have learnt what the attack framework is, what are tactics and techniques specified in the framework, the 4 use cases for the framework, and how to use the attack navigator. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson on the Mitre attack framework and that you're able to take what you've learnt and apply it to help improve protection within your organization. Thank you.